My name is Selena. I am a dual licensed therapist here at Orange Blossom Aesthetics. So this evening, our whole focus is really going over what belly type you are. I know that at first it's a little bit interesting because I find that most of the women that come to me, they're sometimes a little more conservative about talking about these topics because they feel a little bit more vain when they talk about it. Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to look like that, but I feel this way. However, I want to put a little bit more focus on the health reasons behind it. I got into this field as a dual licensed therapist, so originally massage was kind of my number one baby. So I specialized mainly with sports therapy, gait cycles, and posture structures. So once I moved into the skin side, I unveiled a whole nother ball game to where now I'm working with tissues of the structure of skin as well as fat, which is kind of a combination of what kind of makes us up in our structures. So a lot of what I'm going to talk to you guys about today is mainly what those structures look like according to those belly types, how we can actually combat them once we get to those areas, and the best practices or either services that you'd want to focus on when you're looking at for the health side of shaping your belly for that point. So we'll go ahead and jump into it. The main situation that we have when it comes to this is there's 2 layers of fat, okay? And this plays a huge part because I have a lot of clients that come in and it's a very hard topic, right? It's not an easy topic to tell someone that I know you want to come in for body contouring, but I need you to lose more weight. Ideally, that's going to be more so of a health conscious thing before it would be a vanity thing, okay? Because we're dealing with 2 layers of fat, as you can see, we have 2 here, and I don't want to get too close to this because it'll probably block out, but you have a fat tissue that's closer to your internal organs here, and then we have a layer of fat that's on the outer portion at the base of the belly, okay? So the base of the belly fat is what we call subcutaneous fat. That is fat that lives directly right underneath the skin. So that's the fat that actually gives us that cottage cheese-like effect or that cellulite effect. It's also the same amount of fat that we pull when we kind of grip our skin and kind of roll it under. It's not necessarily more than an inch, but you can kind of feel it and you can feel the little grooves in between it. So that's subcutaneous fat. That fat in general is going to be the one that we see the most treated with some of the services that you get in your health spas, okay? So these are going to be your warm sculpting, your cool sculpting type devices. Now, when we're looking at something that's more like visceral fat, that's closer to the organs, those types of treatments are going to be more so based upon you as a consumer, okay? Visceral fat usually develops sometimes because of eating habits. It could also happen because of hormones, and that's what we're going to get into today. So first belly that we have is post-pregnancy belly, okay? So for any of my moms out there, there's 3 things that happen. So you see our figure here has kind of changed, and the 2 big areas that you see is there's a smaller bump at the upper portion right underneath the rib cage. Then you have another portion that's a little bit lower on the base of your abdominals there. So the top portion is what I want to talk about first. That little hump happens because when you are pregnant, your abdominis kind of splits, right? And when that happens, all of your organs have to shift up so that your womb and your baby have a nice little nestle spot to hang out in. After you deliver a baby, your body does kind of go back in, and that abdominal wall kind of goes back down like a curtain, but sometimes that space stays there and it's a little bit more, doesn't allow for your abdominal walls to reconnect, and we call that diastasis. So when that happens, we do no longer have that upper support of your abdominal wall, and because of that, we kind of lack the structure there, okay? So that's the first hump of that. The lower portion of the belly, which is what we kind of call the mom pooch or the pouch, so to say, it is governed around that ovarian area where we have a lot of our female parts, but it's also where the birth canal lies. So the last month or so before you deliver your baby, your child hangs out a lot there. And when they're so deep in that pelvic area, all those ligaments and all that tissue is very overstretched, okay? Not to say the least, but it's also filled with mostly amniotic fluid? Is that how you say that? So that weight alone with the baby and then those muscles that are kind of at war, it has a lot of laxity. So when I'm looking at the post-pregnancy belly, the first thing that we want to target there, because we talked a lot about difference in muscle, it's muscle structure, okay? They really want to work on that diastasis that has happened in the upper portion, and they really want to build the lower portion of their belly because those ligaments and muscles are now weak as well. The last area that's not really, most people don't really look at, but it's also the glutes. When we're pregnant, our pelvis naturally kind of goes anterior tilt. So that also puts a lot of strain on the lower back because these muscles are no longer long and stable. They're short and weak. So they cause a lot of low back pain. So we kind of want to target all three muscle areas. So your abdomen, lower abdomen, as well as the glute muscle to give you a more stabilized core. When your core is stabilized, any type of fat at that point is going to happen a lot faster and quicker for you. Not only will you have a little bit more oomph to your workouts or maybe even your walks or your runs, but again, you're going to have a more stable core, giving you a better posture and alleviating some of that post-pregnancy pain that you might still be experiencing. Okay? Any questions on that? No?
I'm like, why can't I get my back to get right?
Yeah.
I just had a baby, and well, it was he just turned a year.
Yeah.
But I'm not bouncing back as quick as I was in my 20s. And I'm like, oh yeah, all the things. So I'm like, yeah, just get rid of it. My back is killing me sometimes when I get up or turn over.
Definitely. I had a client that came in today, and so that lumbar support that we get in the lower area, it's called a lordotic arch. And so with that pull, it does create a curvature. So that's why I really like to talk about that structural part of it, because when you can alleviate pain and feel good, you'll naturally want to continue to the next level of burning fat and tightening the skin. Okay? So stress belly, we all get stressed out, right? Stress is definitely attributed to a lot of obesity, especially now after what's going on in the world. But for us, especially females, when we stress about our kids, our jobs, when we're getting groceries, what to pack for vacations, things of that nature. But when that happens and we're in those elevated levels, we are heightening our cortisol levels. Cortisol in general is a very, very specific hormone that will definitely allow for your body to turn most of these little small acumens into areas of stress and concern, and it will hide itself anywhere, okay? When you're looking at the hormonal belly, the reason why it sits a little bit higher is because with high levels of cortisol, it makes us a lot more active, okay? When you're having anxiety over anything, you have a hard time sleeping that night, right? You might toss, turn the entire evening, or maybe even for a week, regardless of what you have going on. But what that leads to is sleep deprivation. And what sleep deprivation leads to is overeating or eating things that aren't good for you. And naturally, with cortisol being at a higher level of sleep deprivation, you're going to be drawn towards more of the sweets, because that's what happens for females. It also will heighten or change our estrogen levels, okay? So you'll want to grab those chocolates and things of that nature. It's also why when your period comes around or your cycle comes around, you're always craving sweets, because that's what also is happening at that point. So with cortisol, it will actually place these little pockets of fats in unwanted areas. And most of the time when it happens, it's going to be closer to the organs because we have a lack of deprivation. So it's literally just sending it wherever it feels that it needs some comfort and or support, okay? So it is going to hang out closer to the organ. So that's that visceral fat. Okay, and as you can see, it's a little higher up. It's not so much all the way here, but it is a higher up pitch for that. So with that, the biggest thing that I've found that's really awesome to talk to a lot of people about is magnesium. It's an all-natural supplement that can be taken. They have it in IV drips. They also sell it in capsules and different formulas. But with magnesium alone, it's going to help you balance out a lot. It is definitely a mood stabilizer. So it's a really good thing for a lot of people if you're having anxiety, and it also will help you sleep. Okay, so a little tidbit there that I like to kind of throw out there. And the last part of it is, when you're looking at a stressed belly, the main core that you want to focus on first is that visceral fat, so the fat that's closest to the organs, because if your stress has deposited there, it's going to also possibly lead to a disorder and or disease or dysfunction in a part of the body. Okay, any questions? All right, so hormonal belly. So we spoke about hormones that are being attributed when we're stressed out, but also with hormonal belly, we have changes as we get older. Also changes once we've had a child, or even sicknesses can do the same thing. With hormonal belly, as you can see, there's a little small pocket right at the top of the butt area, and then there's a lot a lot more of that bulge to the lower portion of the abdominal area. When we're looking at this, it's mainly, I'm sorry, I think I lost my mic. Can you hear me still? Okay. With that being said, the first thing I recommend for someone who's going through hormonal imbalances and they're seeing that weight gain predominantly in your belly is definitely talk to your providers about hormone therapy. Unless you can get that under control, it's going to continue to send you through different cycles, okay? So hormone therapy is probably the number one thing that I would go to first, because you can start your fat reduction, your skin tightening, all those things, but it will definitely come back. And then you'll be disappointed and or still not happy with where you want to be. So you want to target more so the root cause when it comes to that, and that's going to be balancing out those hormones. That is something that we do offer here. I'm not sure how many of you ladies have heard of BioT, but it is a very great program that we have here where we have pellet therapies and we also have supplements that kind of cover a span of different things that we have going on there. I think, Jensen, what's probably your favorite one that we have?
Either DIM or the deep sleep.
Okay.
The deep sleep is life changing.
Yes. And then why do you like DIM?
Well, DIM's great for hormonal acne,
Mm-hmm.
but it's great for estrogen support.
Perfect. So I would start there first if we're dealing with hormonal belly. The other thing is with hormonal belly, if you can see that little pocket that's right above the glute, and then because you're at the lower range, you're also looking at that same pelvic tilt that you would be getting when someone is pregnant, okay? So that also means that core stabilization is not there. If your core is unstable, it's going to make any of your workouts, home routines, or anything that you're doing, it's not going to be effective, or you're going to end up hurting yourself, have low back pain, my knees are hurting, my hips are hurting, because that core is not stable, okay? So the next step that you would move into once you get your hormones checked and get your pellets or whatever you need going, move into muscular building for those areas. Once you get your core tight, you'll also see that you'll probably have burned a lot more fat as well, because for that muscle, in order for it to expand and kind of grow and where it needs to be, you're going to also burn some calories and some fat in that area. For whatever residual fat you have left, that's when you want to look at doing some fat reductions for the small pockets of fat that haven't moved yet, and then maybe even some skin tightening if you feel that you need it. And our last one, which, I think all of us might have fallen in this at some point in time in life, but the alcohol or consumption belly gives you that nice, what we call bloat, okay? So with this belly, it is round from the top and it is round from the bottom, but it is like that for a reason, okay? Especially if it's due to alcohol consumption. Alcohol is metabolized in the body as a glycogen, which is obviously a sugar, okay? So when that fat is deposited into those fatty tissues, it will definitely make a lot of changes and target muscles as well as your liver functions. Look at where it starts to round, which is right at the top of where your digestive system starts, right? And that is also where your liver is located. So it is inflamed and not feeling so well there. The other part of it is because it also attacks your muscles, what muscle actually governs that whole portion that we're looking at? It is your abdominals, and they go from the top all the way to the bottom. So if it's affecting your liver and it's affecting that muscular structure, you're going to get a nice rounded rainbow from start to top, okay? Target thing for this too, guys, is it can lead to diabetes, especially if it is over alcohol consumption. If it is bloating consumption just from maybe you're not alcohol, it might be more of the processed foods, okay? So having a very good nutritional plan would probably be the very first focus, maybe lessen the alcohol consumption. According to the CDC, I think men are supposed to have 2 alcoholic beverages a day, women could only have 1. So boo-hoo for us because we can't do those things, but the calories are definitely there. So we definitely want to be careful with that. Regardless of if it's alcohol or a bloated consumption belly, your biggest focus is reducing the visceral fat for your overall health and well-being. We don't want any of that to turn into any type of health risk beyond that. Definitely incorporating better nutrition habits and increasing your activities. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that you join a gym. It could just be that you're walking each day or maybe doing a little extra around the house at the end of the day so that you keep the movement there. If you can gear your day around getting closer to 10,000 steps, you're going to start to make some huge change in metabolism. Metabolism change can also lead to fat reduction as well. Okay. So let's talk about how we can actually build muscle, reduce fat, and tighten skin. At this point, we're going to kind of mingle throughout our spa. That way you can see what devices will target muscle, which ones will target fat, and also which ones will target skin. I have two of my beautiful reps here from BTL. That would be our devices that govern a lot of our muscular building and structure. So they're here to assist. So if you see any of us kind of tied up and you want to know more about that, they're here for that. And then Miss Jensen is our other esthetician that also does body contouring, so she is here as well. And we have 3 of you ladies, so I think we can actually hit everybody and all of your questions tonight and help you in any kind of way. Does anyone have any questions before we break out to do that session? No?